morning out there. It is Saturday morning, 20th. No, it's Friday morning, the 20th of September. It is 44 degrees outside and raining hard. We had a boondocking spot overnight. The closest town was Teslin, but we were 30-40 clicks south and east of Teslin when we pulled over. We're heading for the Cassiar Highway. We have 113 kilometers to go before we turn south on the Cassiar. I'll let you look around out there. It is very cloudy, dismal, rainy. I'm glad it's not another, say, 8 degrees colder. We'd be having snow instead of rain. So let's look around. Coming up to an intersection, Junction 37 they call it. It is where the Cassiar Highway splits off of the Alaska Highway, and that's the route we're taking towards a town called Dease Lake, but we're going like further now. There's a little town along the Cassiar Highway we heard a lot about from different YouTubers called Jade City, and there is a Cassiar Mountain Jade store. I had some things to make sure were secure in the back of the truck, so I did that, and you see me walking in the store, and by the time I got in the store, Vickie had already looked around and decided that we really didn't need anything from the Jade store, so we turned around and left and got going right back down the highway. So we got back in the truck and headed back down the highway, and one of the apps I use, Compendium, is where I think I found notice of a provincial park campground that we decided to stop in, and it's Canaskin Lake Provincial Park. And we had a nice campsite there, nice back-end site, nice quiet overnight, except for the rain, and got up the next morning and headed back down the highway. For those of you who might be driving the Cassiar Highway, fuel is available at several places along the way. Dease Lake is one place that we fueled up. Also, Bell Crossing on the east side of the highway is a real nice place to stop, get some fuel. I was able to get Vickie a real nice cappuccino. So we go back on the highway. You also can, at Mezzadine Junction is a place to get fuel and something to eat. There's a little store there, dump station, and also a place to fill with water. And then as you head south, and when you get to the end of the Cassiar Highway, as I was saying, you can get fuel at the intersection of Route 37, which is the Cassiar Highway, and Canada Route 16, which takes you east or west, and we headed east towards Prince George. And we stayed that next night at White Soil Campground, which is at Fraser Lake. It's a free campground, and it's very, very nice. The terrain in British Columbia is very varied. In northern BC, after you enter from the Yukon, there are tall mountains on either side of you, but for the most part, you are driving down a valley, and it's very scenic. And the further south you get, then you climb some hills, I would say. Once you get south of Prince George, there are some real tall mountains that you have to climb, and very long and stretched out. And then a little further south, it almost turns into like a desert-like environment, like we're driving through here. Almost reminds me of Arizona. And then when you get down on the southern border, it reminds me almost of Adams County, Pennsylvania, where there's a lot of fruit trees, especially apple trees. We would like to stop and buy some, but we were heading for the Canadian border, or the U.S. border, and no, we didn't want to have produce on board when we crossed the border. So we had to not stop and buy what looked like was a good place to buy fruit. We stayed that night at Steelhead Provincial Campground in British Columbia, and we were really pleased with the provincial campgrounds that we stayed at while we were in British Columbia. We got up the next morning and continued our drive south through British Columbia, heading for the Washington state border and U.S. Customs. And we were so pleased that we made it through Customs as easy as you could. The only thing they asked about was produce in the refrigerator, and we had none, so we were good to go. And then we continued our trip south through the state of Washington, heading for Plummer, Idaho, and our grandson's, where he lives, grandson's place. I don't know if you've noticed, but several times in this video on the right front of the screen there, you'll see a white reflection, and that's from our Starlink mini dish, which we purchased while we were in Anchorage, Alaska. And the beauty of buying in Alaska is there was no sales tax. But it is a game changer as far as internet is concerned, while driving in remote places, especially down the Cassiar Highway, where the last time we drove it, we drove for 6 or 8 hours, or 600 or 800 miles with no internet, and here we had internet the whole way. So I highly recommend it. Something we hadn't planned for, but was glad we drove by it, was a town called Grand Coulee in Grand Coulee Dam there in Washington State. And here in a little bit we come up to an intersection where you can see the dam off the left front of the vehicle. And then as we drive up the hill past the dam again will be out the left window of Rosie. And we enjoyed our very brief drive-by. Wouldn't mind stopping sometime and seeing this dam. They do give tours from time to time, and taking a closer look. Well, we arrived at our grandson Hunter's place and set up camp and really enjoyed spending several days with him there in northern Idaho. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit the subscribe button. Appreciate a thumbs up if you like it. See you in the next one.